Welcome to Maidens and Magic. Well, hello and welcome, witches. You are down with me, Anarchy, and this is Maidens and Magic. Hello to all of my witches who have been following me from the beginning, and welcome new friends, new witches. We're glad to have you here. I wanted to tell you a little bit about, now this is the maiden voyage, if you will, the debut episode of Maidens and Magic in podcast form. Tell you a little bit about how I started. I started this as a YouTube channel. I was actively teaching at the time and using Zoom and YouTube all the time. And so it was just kind of, and by the way, didn't know how to make a podcast. So I just went with what I knew. The ambition was always to switch it over here to have a more streamlined, succinct podcast to give you. Now, this is audio only form. Of course, you're going to miss out on some of my hijinks and antics, but you can always check my webpage. That is anarchy.me, anarchy.me. And there you'll find another thing I'm doing. It's a vlog. I do a couple episodes or so a week, just kind of at random, of things I wonder. Please check that out. Also on there, I do have my first novel, The Goddess of Forgotten Things, for sale. But enough of all that self-promotion. I'm here to tell you a little bit about what Maidens and Magic is, in case you are a new, I was going to say viewer, but listener. And I think we do have a few. Each week I focus on a maiden. Now, she might be a maiden, a mother, or a crone. I embrace all of the triad. I love women in every phase of life. I think they're magical and gorgeous. And so that's what I do. I pick a maiden and share their magic with you. Oftentimes this does come in the form of a film, probably one that you're familiar with in the past. I have focused a lot on more like cult classic films, and I don't think I've done a lot. I think most of the films I've done have been were made between the 70s and the 90s. So with that said, I'm going to move forward with something a little bit different today. I'm going to do a more recent film, and one perhaps you've never heard of, and I think you should, because it's actually a very compelling movie. So this week, Maidens and Magic proudly presents for you the 2017 Norwegian supernatural thriller drama film, if you will, Thelma. I had not heard of this film myself. I really was surprised that I had never heard of it, actually. The director, I just found it on Hulu. I believe it's on Hulu and or Netflix. Hulu, I'm almost certain that it's on Hulu. So if you want to watch and play along, I would love that. I really am going to do my best to talk about this movie in some detail without spoiling it, because I really do think it should be seen. Now, the film was directed by Joachim Trier, and that looks spelled exactly like Lars von Trier, but I'm pretty sure that they're not related. At least if they are, it's a well-guarded secret as far as I can tell. Thelma tells the story of a sheltered young woman who discovers she has an inexplicable power that materializes when she feels desire for a female student at her university. I know, so everybody's super surprised that I chose a lesbian movie to debut for the maiden voyage here. It seemed apropos. I'm sorry, I had to do it. Now, here's the thing. Is it just a lesbian movie? I want you to ask me. That's right. It is not. It is not just a lesbian movie. In fact, she's a repressed girl. I'm just reading from Wikipedia right quick here. Thelma is a lonely and repressed young woman from an ultra-religious Christian family. Dun dun dun. Right every time. Who has lived a sheltered life under the protection of her father Trond and her mother, her disabled mother Uni. She struggles to make friends, and soon after moving to Oslo to attend university, begins to experience unexplained epileptic seizures. When she meets another student, Anya, she discovers that her feelings for Anya trigger uncontrollable psychokinetic powers. That's right, witches. Not just a lesbian movie, but lesbian psychokinesis. I love it. Now, I did the last episode I did on YouTube before switching over to this podcast that you're listening to now was Carrie, That's 1970s original version of it. So I will not be talking about psychokinesis again. I'll let you know what the magic this week is going to be momentarily. Before I get to that, I actually wanted to talk a little bit about the two maidens in this film. So the film Thelma stars two principal actors that want to focus on, and the first is the main protagonist. Her name is, I'm going with Eili. It's Eili Harboe, and she is Norwegian. She was born in Stavanger. She's appeared in about 8 movies. She was given a Silver Aster Award in 2017, and that is literally all that is on her Wikipedia page. She just doesn't have a very vast body of work yet. However, she's a very quietly compelling actress. What do I mean by that? I guess looking at her images, since we don't really have much else to talk about, when you look in, I'm sure, go ahead and Google her now. Look with me, if you will. She looks very Norwegian, and at first blush, really kind of attractive, but in a very understated, unassuming kind of way. And I think unassuming is a very good word for her, because really, let's see, let me put it like this. If you were on the train, daily grind, going to the office or whatever the fuck you have to do in life in this capitalist society to pay rent and yada yada, the patriarchy. If you were on the train in the morning during your commute and you crowded train and you look over, you would look at her for a second. And if perhaps she caught your eye and smiled back at you or something, you would continue to be curious about her. But if not, I think you'd soon kind of just look at the next person. Um, Not that she's unremarkable, just that our brains are constantly wanting more and more stimulation. And this film, I'm going to tell you, has that beautiful cadence of, it does very much have a von Trier feel to it. It has, in fact, Joachim is, his movies are described thusly. Let me read this for you. Melancholy meditations concerned with existential questions of love, ambition, memory, and identity. Sounds right up my alley, and this is very much the mood of the feel, the cadence of it. It forces you to kind of slow down, and so you're given more time to look at Eili. And as you do, by the end of the film, you find yourself actually becoming really quite fond of her. But it is a kind of a slow burn. The second maiden or actor in the 2017 Norwegian film Thelma, she's an ingenue, really. She is, because this was her debut film. Her name, I'm thinking, is Kaya Wilkins. It's Kaya, and I want to say Kaya, but her moniker is OK Kaya, like OKOKAY. Okay, Kaya? Kaya? Okay, Kaya? Not sure. I say her moniker really because she seems to be more of a musician. Now, she has a multi credited, multi hyphenated kind of title of model, actress, musician, everything else. She definitely seems to be, they referred to her as a triple threat, but this was her first film. She got very good reviews for it. I will say this, I can tell that she's not a seasoned actress in the film. She seems a little green, but it's definitely not poorly acted. She's compelling. And because, I'm just going to say this, she is gorgeous. You heard model in there, and so she is gorgeous. I don't know anything about how old she is. She was born in New Jersey but raised on a peninsula outside of Oslo, where she learned to play guitar with her brothers, members of a local black metal group. That's what I would like to hear about. Her music is not, it's okay. It's kind of a dreamy bedroom pop, I guess they're calling it. It sounds kind of, I think they described it as svelte jazz inflected melodies. And that's about accurate. It wasn't bad. She has a lovely voice, not quite my cup of tea, but interested to hear what her brothers are doing black metal wise. And again, you might want to Google her. I think it's Again, Kaya Wilkins. So go ahead, I'll give you a second. Right, you're welcome. She is gorgeous. She has a very interesting look because she is very swarthy and very dark, and her features sometimes in some photos don't totally make sense, but then in other photos she looks very conventional in a kind of Gal Gadot kind of way, which no one on the fucking planet is complaining about, right? Because she's just fucking precious. Yeah, so she has a very compelling dark look, even though the acting is maybe not, she's clearly green, like I said. She pulls it off, and you want to watch her and you want to watch these women together because, lesbian psychokinesis. Anyway, there's not really a lot about either one of them personally online, but there was your quick introduction to both actresses in the film. And moving on from here, I want to talk a little bit about the film itself. When talking about the film Thelma, I am not going to be doing a scene by scene. I'm not doing anything to spoil it. I'm really hoping mostly that you guys will play along and watch the film, and so you have a fresh visual in your mind while I'm talking about it. And just because it's a very good film, aesthetically, this film is gorgeous. I was thinking Norway is so stark and it's such a beautifully stark aesthetic that we have here, and it is punctuated by a very interesting and sometimes subtle use of color. The film is gorgeous. It has all kinds of I don't want to say special effects, but just visually really stunning camera work. The cinematography or filmography of it is just, it's very beautiful. There are a lot of very wide, expansive, open shots, and there's a lot of stark landscapes there. And I can't think of anything in particular, but as I was watching it, found myself thinking on multiple occasions, this film seems so Norwegian. Like, this is Norwegian filmmaking at its finest. Although I had no specific point of reference for that or nothing to compare it to, I did kind of find myself thinking that. So it really is a beautiful film. What I can say about the plot, and yes, lesbian psychokinesis. I mean, how do you not love that? It is true. It is part of a thing. But the thing about this movie, as I mentioned before, it's really, as the characters themselves, it's really kind of a slow burn. It's this slow unveiling of things. And even if you're kind of anticipating, there's some foreshadowing and you might expect some of it. But the storyteller, the director, really takes his time with this. And everything is unveiled bit by bit, so that even the lesbian psychokinesis part, okay, you gotta say it like that, haha, um, even that part of it is very much kind of given away in the trailer, to be honest. And here's what I'm going to tell you about this. Well, actually, let's do this. If you can't commit to watching the entire movie, I would say this: go on Hulu and at least watch the trailer so you get a flavor, so you get a little sample of the aesthetic that I mean. Um, and I would caution you against, I would discourage you from reading anything about it for the reasons that I was just mentioning. It's such a slow unfolding that when you read the synopsis, it gives too much away too soon. You're really not sure the extent of her, I don't know what I want to say, like psychokinetic abilities or abilities. You're really not sure, and you're not sure how it's connected and other things that the repercussions of it or things that might have been caused by it. It really is a slow unveiling to find out just how powerful, I guess you could say, the switch really is. Um, the ending of the movie is a little, I don't even want to get into the ending. It is a little bit like, oh, okay, fair enough. It's kind of a happy ending, but there with a, I don't want to give too much away. There's a possible like question mark at the end of it. But ultimately, I think it's a story that's really well told, and it's so pretty to look at it. It's one of those movies that is slow paced but manages to hold the tension the entire time, and so it was really quite a pleasure to watch. Um, but what magic am I going to be doing? Going to be doing. Sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. I got excited. I'm overly caffeinated. That's a thing that happens sometimes when I'm alone in my apartment. I would say um, psychokinesis sounds like the obvious answer, except I did do that in Carrie, as previously mentioned. So I will tell you now, I'm going to talk about this um, the law of attraction, the power of being able to manifest things. Which, if you do watch the movie, like I'm hoping you do, you'll see a little bit more how this ties in. All right, now getting into the magic portion of Thelma, I'm going to talk about this with still trying to not spoil too much of the movie for you. Going to get into this idea of being able to manifest things and how I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that through the this idea of the law of attraction. Now, I am starting with the pseudoscience, i.e., like the secret and that kind of shit, right? The Celestine prophecy, stuff like that. But I am going to show how, even though this is a pseudoscience, it has roots, kind of dubious roots. We're using this, I'm being very generous here, basically. Some roots in really, the law of attraction has roots in the seven Hermetic principles, so the laws of the universe according to the Kybalion. And gonna also talk about the Golden Dawn specifically, well, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which does get into some Crowley magic, as I usually call it, or the Thelema magic, and also touch on the Hermetic Kabbalah. Interestingly, the law of attraction, the pseudoscience, the secret kind of stuff, does also claim to have ties to the Bible and to Buddhism and Hinduism, but we're going to see what we think about that. Now, if you're not familiar with the Secret, the movie or the book, or the Celestine Prophecy, which I believe is even older, I'm going to give you a quick lowdown on the law of attraction. Now, it is belief, the basic belief of it, the basic principles of it are not bad. I actually do agree with the fundamental principle here that I know, okay, simply put, negative energy draws negative energy, positive energy draws positive energy. I can say from my own personal experience, when I was in a very dark, destructive, self destructive place, I very easily drew other like minded people to me. Soulless fuckers. And conversely, have been able to draw more positive people to me. I've always had that counterbalance. I've always been very fortunate. But not all people are. So what they believe here, and I'm going to hop over to the Wikipedia page on the law of attraction, New Thought. Their basic belief is the idea that people and their thoughts are made from pure energy, and the process of like energy attracting like energy exists through which a person can improve their health, wealth, and personal relationships. This is where it gets new agey and pseudoscientific, right? So it's fine to say, hey, like energy draws like energy, and it's, about energy karma, essentially. You're going to get back what you put out into the world. Then we get this fixation on people improving their health, wealth, and love life. And I'm going to say it's usually about money and relationships. Now, this is the kind of magic manifest. I don't do this kind of manifestation magic for wealth and love. I think it's for me bad juju, not my bag. That's to each their own. Again, and I do, to be totally fair, I think at least three different people who have really religiously practiced this. Well, let me explain it to you. So a lot of it goes with like creative visualizations, right? So you're making, if you've heard vision boards, that's where this comes from. So you're actually creating a visualization, which is also a kind of cognitive reframing technique, right? So you're taking these negative thoughts and you're replacing them with positive images. Okay, okie dokie, got that. But by and large, these vision boards are used to manifest. If you look at a vision board ever, what is it? It's big houses and cars and fine ass women, the fly ladies and the sexy Viking men. I think that's what you guys are into now. And and you know, I okay. I know some people who swear by it. There's another technique that some people use where they wake up and they write things repetitively. Remember this one guy telling me, and he woke up every morning. He had this kind of mantra, and I don't remember what it was, but he wrote it. I think he said he wrote it like 150 times every morning, and he stood in the mirror and like did these affirmations. But for all the world, it worked for him. He worked hard for it. He's a real estate agent. I don't know, but he gained a lot of material wealth. This is how I got my husband, too. I think the husband was also accredited to the secret and his job and all of these things. He really swears, and I've known a few people who will swear by it, these techniques. So who knows the power of mind over matter, and the power of concentrated energy and like prayer. I just popped there a little bit. Prayer and positive thought. Um, I do not dispute it. It's more how it's being directed. So anyway, I don't want to go any more into that really because it is a pseudoscience. But what is interesting about it is it purports to have a lot of ties to things, as I mentioned before, such as the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, um, the Bible, and Hinduism, Buddhism. Sorry about that. Lots of different things here. So when you go into the philosophical and religious basis here on the Wikipedia page, still here, it talks first. It says, in particular, it has been inspired by Hermeticism. Now, just really quickly, because I sometimes kind of forget my audience here, and I think everybody knows what that is because my friends are listening to this, and you guys are all a bunch of witches. But for the non-witches or the aspiring witches or people who just want to be better educated, Hermeticism is actually a philosophical system primarily based on purported teachings of this guy Hermes, whose last name I can never pronounce. I don't know, and it's supposed to be a combination of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth, if you want to know. So basically, it is a lot of this Hermeticism really amounted to alchemy was one of the big byproducts of it. And I'm talking now at this point, I would be talking about the alchemy of the Renaissance. I'd be talking about Sir Isaac Newton, for example. He wasn't Sir Isaac Newton, was he? Did I just like give him knighthood? Anyway, no, it is Sir Isaac Newton. I had to look. God, see, I'm brilliant. I'm an idiot. Anyway, but this would be the kind of alchemy where they were trying to change regular metals into gold. So a very specific kind of Renaissance alchemy here that resulted largely from Hermeticism. Wow, full disclosure there, fans. I just had to cut because I was having such a freakish allergy attack that I almost lost my voice entirely. And wouldn't that be tragic? Because then who would ramble around circuitously off on every tangent possible, if not me? Gonna leave Hermeticism there and go back to this idea. I think we got the general idea, right? Alchemy, Sir Isaac Newton, Renaissance alchemy being the major byproduct there. That's I'm oversimplifying that a bit, but that's what's happening right now. Going back to the law of attraction, actually, there is this idea that there are 7 Hermetic principles. So since we're kind of still, see the segue there, Hermetic. And they call this sometimes the laws of the universe according to the Kybalion. This is right now, I'm on the lawofattraction.com by Greater Minds, if you're interested in checking that out, just to reference my point here. And so what this is all about, it's supposed to be a guy in the 1st and 2nd century, I believe. Am I telling you this correctly? I believe so. There was a dude a long time ago. I'm going to give you the really professional explanation here. This guy Hermes something or other, whose last name I can never say, but he's supposed to be the writer of the Corpus Hermeticum. And so the Kybalion is a book. Maybe you've heard of this before. I had, but I didn't know what to tie it into. It is a book that was published by a mysterious individual or individuals named the Three Initiates. And it's supposed to be that the book's name refers to the three planes of existence: physical, mental, spiritual. Um, yeah, I've never read that book. I can't really say anything else about it. What I will say about this book, the Free Law of Attraction ebook that they're advertising on this page, man, the cover bears a striking resemblance to Dianetics by L. Ron Hubbard. And I just don't think that's unintentional. That's all I'm going to say about this. Quick rundown on the seven Hermetic principles. Principle one, mentalism. All is in the mind, the universe is mental. This is an ancient philosophy called solipsism, which basically means everything is a product or byproduct of your consciousness. And some people would actually argue that there is no mind, even, if you really want to get into it. Number two, the principle of correspondence. This is where we hear finally the anybody who knows Thelma, Crowley, Magick, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, any of that. You've heard this before. Principle two, as above, so below, so above, as within, so without, as without, so within. um, so yeah, and so practitioners, this is the kind of thing that gives this pseudoscience legitimacy. We're actually tying it into things that are quasi, existent things, no matter what. It gives it a quasi yeah. Legitimacy is what I was going for there. I should cut that, but I'm gonna leave it. So we have the principle number three, principle of vibration. Nothing is ever at rest. This is thermodynamics, the principle of rhythm. Everything flows, rises and falls. Physics, basic general physics, the principle of cause and effect. Thermodynamics again, principle of gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine. This is borrowed heavily from Taoism, yin and yang, or yin and yang, bada bing, bada boom. So we've got some like Eastern, you see what they did there? It's actually pretty clever. So they take some like, ritual magic with a smattering of Eastern philosophy, shake it around with some basic thermodynamics and common sense, and it's alluring. I'm not even disputing any of it, really. I'm really not. Again, it's not the practice itself. It's not the philosophy of it itself. It's the way in which it's so often implemented that I wouldn't say I take issue with it. I just, about it a little bit. Okay, so I also mentioned that in addition to the Golden Dawn, which I'm going to talk about just a little bit more, I'm going to get through all the other things that are allegedly foundations of this practice. One of the other things it claims is foundational is the Bible. And I had a hard time locating this. It comes down, this is the only biblical reference I could find. Here it is. You ready? It is Proverbs 23:7. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Okay. So you are what you think. Your thoughts are. It's flimsy, as is everything, every biblical fucking reference ever. And I'm sorry if that offends you, but sorry, not sorry. So what was the other one? And on the Wikipedia page for the law of attraction, it claims to also have foundation in Hinduism. And I couldn't find any other connection with that. I think this is probably the biggest stretch, and I think what they're going for is a very watered down idea of karma, basically. You get back what you put out there. And it generally is just a good Wiccan, good witch policy. The threefold. You get back whatever you put out there times three. So keep it clean. Nobody needs to be doing anybody else dirty. The last foundational tie that it claims to have is to Buddhism. Now, this one is probably the strongest, I hate to say. It says hundreds of years ago, the law of attraction was thought to have been taught to a man by the immortal Buddha, who said, and they misquote it here. They say on this is still lawofattraction.com, what you have become is what you have thought. That's partially correct. What Buddha said was what you think you become, what you feel you attract, and what you imagine you create. That's good. In and of itself, that quote is fucking beautiful. I feel like it's being a little bit distorted and misapplied for this law of attraction. Vision boarding for I don't know. But again, to each their own. I'm not trying to bag on anything. But what's interesting about the inclusion of Buddha or Buddhism is it's a very myopic, very really scope of Buddhism. And if we were really talking more about Buddhism and we were talking about, say, the Four Noble Truths, right? um, if we were talking about the Eightfold Path, like let's think about that for a second. Let's look at the Four Noble Truths, basically. And you're familiar, everybody has heard part of this, I'm sure. And that is basically the first noble truth, really, is that to live involves suffering. To live is to suffer. There, it is inherent. Um, right? But what causes the suffering? And this is really what it gets to. And what causes the suffering is the second noble truth, and that's the origin of suffering is attachment. Attachment not and attachment can be to things, to feelings, to ideas that no longer serve us. It can be cravings. It can be sexual cravings. It can be becoming, non-becoming. There's a lot there, you know, in the different kinds of things that you can become attached to. Um, the really why does attachment cause suffering is a big part of Buddha's teachings. Third noble truth is that the end of suffering is attainable, right? So we are able to transform this. We are able to let go of the attachment. And then the fourth noble truth being the path to the cessation of suffering. And this is where we get into the Eightfold Path. Now, I want to do all of this in Buddhism. I want to do it justice. And so it's kind of a cruel joke to just touch on it here and then run away like a little baby because little babies run. I don't know. I'm leaving it. I'm going to leave that in. I should totally cut that out, but I won't. Um, but if we're looking at suffering being born of desire, right? Why are we so attached to desires? This is where it gets interesting. If we really think about this, isn't vision boarding just it's desire? It's the exemplification of desire. You're actually giving visual images to your desires. You're trying to manifest your desires, not overcome them or the attachment to them. So, which is, I don't know, what is our takeaway here, really? I look at the law of attraction as a kind of new age philosophy, new age thinking at its finest. It took a lot of great foundational stuff, right? Amalgamated it, bastardized it a little bit, rolled it up into a pretty pink, sparkly package that gives you whatever you want. And I'm being a little harsh on my criticism there. Again, I do know that it has worked for some people, so I can't diss on it too hard. But it's, that same kind of thing that I don't know, say Christianity did. Let's borrow here's some Eastern philosophy, a little bit of Hinduism, get that in there. Okay, we'll throw in some basic common sense laws of physics and looks good. Right? So, right. But to its credit, it really did use some clever and some of the best parts of magic. Now, the Buddhism is not as expansive as I would like it to be. It's a very selective, a very Christian cherry picking bit of Buddhism there. Let's call that what it is. The biblical tie-in, as well as lame as you would expect that to be. But some of the more interesting aspects that I can't totally hate it for borrowing are about the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, Hermeticism in general, but it's specifically going to the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, getting into embracing that whole kind of Thelma kind of as above, so below, and as without, so within, I think is probably the best thing that this new age philosophy, whatever pseudoscience has to offer in a lot of ways. Now, with that said, I feel like I just, again, I keep cruelly teasing you with, so I'm almost every episode, I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. I think probably nearly every episode, at least half of them, okay, to be fair, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, Crowley, Thelma, Magick, come up a lot, and I've been promising a deeper dive. That will happen in the foreseeable future, I promise you. Also, the other thing that I touched upon tonight that I do want to do a little more not research. I actually have studied Buddhism extensively, but I would like to do a deeper dive. I was trying to avoid using that expression, but there it is anyway. I would like to get into the Eightfold Path and some more robust discussion of the teachings of Buddha. That would be interesting to me. So, but in a nutshell, we have it tonight. Um, just to recap the whole thing for you, I guess I did the movie Thelma, the 2017 Joachim Trier movie. It's Norwegian. It's dark. It's gorgeous. It involves lesbian psychokinesis. It's just beautifully filmed. Very interesting movie that I can't say too much about, except I really encourage you to go ahead and watch it. And we talked not about psychokinesis because I've done that, but instead, for reasons that I'm being slightly enigmatic about, talked about this whole power of manifestation leading into, or as I illustrated with, this law of attraction and how that tied into, well, how it claims foundational roots to the Bible, Buddhism, Hinduism, Hermeticism, and the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And all a pretty epic journey, and I thank you for joining me on it, on this our maiden voyage of Maidens and Magick. I do hope that you join in again in the future. I enjoy bringing these to you, and I love hearing your feedback on them. Anyway, until next time, my witches, please do stay witchy.